Hey everybody, this is David, and today I'm going to be talking about The Flash, sort of. I'm going to be talking about Smallville, Season 4, Episode 5, Run. So, if you really think about it, technically I am talking about The Flash this week. It's not the Flash that you're probably thinking of, though. I'm talking about Smallville's version of the character. And instead of Bart Allen, they decided to use Bart Allen. So, to give you an idea of what the episode was about, basically, Clark runs into this kid who has the exact same speeding powers as he does. So he thinks, maybe I should try to find this guy because he just stole my dad's wallet. So when Clark finds him, he finds out that he's actually not so bad of a kid after all, just one that doesn't have morals. So Clark decides to teach him a little bit about, responsibility. So with the basic plot out of the way, what do I think about this episode? First, let's get into some of these characters. Bart Allen, what do I think of him? When the series first started, Smallville was known to only stick with, Superman-related characters. Lois wasn't even allowed in the beginning, but by Season 4, this was the season that actually introduced Lois. Now, Lois isn't in this episode, but this was also the first season to introduce the very first DC superhero that, doesn't really have connections to Superman, but except for the Justice League. So Flash was actually the very first superhero to appear on the show. Now, some people will note that Bart Allen isn't really the Flash. In some versions, he is called the Kid Flash, from my understanding, but he is also called Impulse, and they actually do play around more with the Impulse name in later episodes when he returns than they do with the actual Flash name. At the time, it had something to do with the rights because there was a Flash movie in development, even though it went nowhere at the time, so they restricted the Flash name for some reason. DC's rules and regulation, I don't know what it was all about. There's some embargoes going on. That's why Batman or Wonder Woman was never allowed to be on Smallville, because there were some heavy rules of using these characters. I don't know what the reasons were, so I can't really comment on that, but Bart Allen was, in my opinion, used really well. I thought he embodied what most Flashes, in my opinion, had embodied by that point. Obviously, by that point, the only two Flashes that I was aware of was the 90s Flash series with John Wesley's ship and Justice League Unlimited, which had their own version of the Flash, which was Wally West. So I was more familiar with the Justice League, the animated series version, and from what I've seen, I think this version of the Flash pretty much embodied what Wally West had. So I'm not sure how accurate the character was. From my understanding, Smallville really didn't do things accurately. They did their own things their own way, and that's fine. But I felt that there were things that were part of the Flash character that was sort of in Bart Allen. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed Bart Allen. I like his, his cocky attitude. He was so sure of himself. He was pretty reckless at times too, but he was very fun and enjoyable. And I think the actor who played him did a really good job. And I really like how his chemistry with Clark is, and what he brings to Clark's life. The producers stated when they brought on Bart, the idea of bringing these DC superheroes is that each one, they wanted to make sure showed Clark something, showed him something, whether it was about the world or his life or something related to him in some sense, or open his eyes to, or open the doors for him. And in Bart's case, it was to show Clark that there were other superpowered beings out there that did not just come from Smallville, and they didn't get it from just kryptonite. Because at that time, they were using kryptonite as a device to give powers to freaks so he can fight weakly. And obviously that was becoming a little bit tiring. So this kind of opened the doors to more broader beings that could be out there. And I think it really worked really well. I think it definitely, especially when more League members definitely came into the picture, the show really began to embrace more of the DC side, and this was definitely the start of it all. Another thing I really enjoyed about this episode was I liked this season wasn't the strongest season. I'm gonna start off by saying that, and Lana was really one of the downfalls. This is when I was really starting to hate Lana a lot. I really liked Lana back in season 1. Season 2, she was still good. Season 3 is where I started noticing I didn't like the way she was being taken. And season 4 is where I started considering her a bitch. And yeah, this was the part where it was very early in the series, or in the season, and she was already, with someone else because she had just broken up with Clark at the end of season 3. So I didn't like Lana's storyline in this season because there was a whole witch thing, and they were setting it up in this episode to be revealed more, because in this episode she revealed to Jason, played by Jensen Ackles from Supernatural, she revealed to him that she had this tattoo that mysteriously got there. And it was one of the downfalls, in my opinion, of season 4. The whole Lana witch thing. It was really dumb and pointless, and I didn't like where that was heading. There was the whole map thing that Lex had in his possession that we found out, and what was cool about this was still when Clark and Lex were still sort of friends. They were really, they had a couple of falling outs, but they were still sticking in there in season 4. So they hadn't really broken out completely. There were still, the bonds between them were really sore at that point, but they were holding in there, and you can really see the lies were really getting to both characters. Lex knew that Clark was lying constantly, and you can see by this point he was really getting tired of it. Clark was sort of the same thing. He knew Lex had his hidden agendas, but he let them slide under the table once in a while. It was really in season 5 where they really decided to stop talking to each other and had their real big falling out. For the most part, this was a very enjoyable episode. I really enjoyed all the characters in this one. Martha had her own thing going on too, and so did Jonathan. But they're not really featured heavily. Same thing with Lana. So Lana doesn't really bring down the episode. She's like only in 2 or 3 scenes in this entire episode. So thankfully it didn't ruin it for me. There are episodes where Lana can be totally annoying. There's episodes where she can be pleasantly, okay, she's pretty cool here. And then there's episodes like this one where she's not featured a lot, so I don't have to worry about her ruining anything. And yeah, I mean, I miss these days, man. These were Smallville, when it was good, it was good. And I feel like this was one of the better episodes in season 4. Despite being a weak season, this was definitely one of the best ones. And yeah, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really liked the interaction between Clark and Bart. I think both of them really had great interactions there. And that was the whole purpose of the episode, was seeing this new DC character interact with Clark. And both of them before they're the heroes we're going to know them to be. And yeah, great job, guys. I miss Smallville, man. I'm glad I'm doing this review, and definitely you will be seeing more, because the Flash and Arrow, sometimes they have characters that Smallville had once done, and I like to compare them a little bit to each other. So if I was comparing Bart to Barry, I definitely like the Barry Allen version a lot more, but Bart Allen is really good too. I think he definitely embodies what the Flash has. Yes, he doesn't have the costume yet, but that was the whole point of Smallville. They're not supposed to have the costumes. They were the characters before they become those characters. Kind of like how Gotham is right now. So guys, with that being said, let's hope for more Smallville reviews, and because I love Smallville and I want to talk more about it because it's one of my shows that, took up 10 years of my life because I loved it that much. So until next time.